I have had a lot of learning from Agents of Ishq. I would say that's true of all of us who work there. Because, it is a co-created project. It's very much crowdsourced. There's a lot of engagement with the audience. And you're always learning from the audience what they are thinking. So keeping that space open, I think is actually good for you in your work because it helps you to understand what's really coming in the way of people doing things. But when you are all the time using policy terminology, which is fine when you're in a space of policy, but you're using it out of place where you're talking to people, then I think you don't actually achieve your aims. And you end up creating a weird, I would say, double shame, right? Because already people feel so ashamed at so many different levels around sexuality. There's so much taboo and uncertainty and hiding. And all of that taboo creates a lack of confidence, right? That is why people feel unable to exercise consent or unable to say, I would like you to use a condom, because we're not used to talking about sex itself.
Yeah.
So I think on the one hand, there is that shame. Then a sort of second shame starts to arise where you feel like, oh, I'm not progressive enough. I don't know enough about these things. So it deepens your lack of confidence. So I would say, yes, a lucid language, a language that is rooted in everyday experience, has to be used when talking about sexuality. And by that, I mean that what are the contexts in which these things arise, right? Like when we talk about sexuality, how does it actually play out in life? It plays out in life through relationships, it plays out through desire, attraction, masturbation, actually having sex, wanting to refuse sex but being unable to do so, and wanting to experiment, discovering your own orientations. This is the actual lived experience of sexuality, right? And if you are not going to speak about these experiences, you're never ever going to be able to resolve these issues. So I guess I would go so far as to say there's a deep squeamishness in society, even in an SRH, our sector, a squeamishness about talking about sex actually, right? So you use terms like sexuality because you don't want to talk about sex. And this is something I've never understood, right? Like the term sexuality becomes so comfortably used because it seems to help you avoid talking about sex, and it helps. And when you do that, you're speaking in generalities. You don't have to actually deal with things one on one. Most of the things that people say, we will find that, or people in cities are more progressive and people in rural areas are more traditional. That's not true. Not true at all, right? In fact, people in cities are far more conservative, far more hesitant to talk about things. I always say the more English you know, the more hesitations you acquire, because there's, again, all this jargon and language, but not a comfort in speaking about what has actually happened to you. So I think we have found all of these things. Um, and I think that one of the things that people do also is like they segment everything, right? They segment populations, they segment sexualities. I do think that any political project that wishes to make a shift has to integrate what is continuously segmented, right? We have to, as full people, we want to be full people, and that's what allows us to move forward. And for that, we have to integrate our whole selves, which means our emotional selves, our sexual selves, our physical selves, and our political selves or our social selves, right? So all of that has to come together. So I think what we find is that more people have the capacity to do that than others think they do. There's a very big colonial hangover in the development sector in social change ideas, where people think, it's like the British thought that Indians were too, the natives were not uh, adult enough to be able to understand the meaning of movies, and that's why they created censorship, right? Censorship was a way of differentiating that the colonial masters were more evolved than their native subjects. Now we have so much of this kind of hangover in the way we talk about people, as if to say we are resolved, we already know the answers to everything, and there are people, they are so backward, and we are going to uplift them, right? So when you construct the audience in that way, and then you're continuously lecturing them, essentially, you're never investigating your own hesitations as a result. But what we find is that actually people are experts on their own lives. They may not be experts on other things, but they do know their own lives. People do try to live the best life they can manage. People do seek pleasure. It's not that there's some hierarchy that, oh, because I'm poor, I'm not seeking pleasure. No, every human being seeks pleasure in whatever way they can. And people have a capacity to speak about their own lives, if you'll only create a space for that. those expressions of their life won't be maybe in the shape you want it to be. They won't tick all the politically correct boxes, but there
Boxes.
will be a lot of lived wisdom in it. And we do find that the more people share, the more sharing it invites from those who are reading, the more it helps people to make sense of their life. So you can create a community conversation that is enabling. That community conversation is not an exam. I feel so much of what governments and development sector people do. They have targets, right? So they treat life like an exam. So I have downloaded my syllabus to you, and now you have to show that you're a perfectly uplifted being by saying all the right things. All of these things hide what's really going on inside us. And we know that, right? Like every single one of us lives in a world where we are supposed to act a certain way and act like we know things and pretend that all our confusions and doubts don't exist. But only being able to speak about our confusions and doubts honestly in a non judgmental atmosphere allows us to work through them and move forward, right? So I think I have not found in our work that people don't have the capacity to understand complexity, I would say. It is only about language. It is about the manner in which you invite the conversation about complexity. If you do it as with some fun, if you do it with some amount of, we all owe a debt to pleasure in this world, right? It is pleasure that helps us learn about the world. It is our senses that help us understand the world. We are born with our senses, and that's what we use to navigate our lives. If we don't actually make offerings to the senses on a daily basis and strengthen them, we don't acquire resilience, right? The whole tabooing of sex is to separate you from your senses, and so separate you from the person you are and your ability to make decisions about something. When I say senses, I'm saying that that didn't feel good to me. I don't want
Yes.
it. It's such a simple thing, but it's never said in that way, right? Like now we have this elaborate kind of language about consent, and a lot of that language is based on I can say no. So in that language the woman is always passive, holding on to her sexuality, and it is to be taken from her with her consent or not her consent. But the idea that there's a mutuality and an acting on something together, that people seek pleasure, this is not a conversation we are easily having, right? So sometimes the reason given for not having that conversation is people are not ready for it,
But
but
that's
people
not
are
true.
ready for it. Yeah. People are ready for any conversation you're willing to have. Maybe every single person isn't, but many people are. Yeah. There's a continuum between sex, pregnancy, and abortion. It is part of that whole story of sexuality. So I do think it's helpful. We have found it helpful at Agents of Ishq to join these as a kind of life cycle of sexuality. Right? That you need to know about sex, you need to know about contraception, you need to understand what is pregnancy, and then an extension of that experience, you need to understand whether you wish to take this pregnancy to fullness or not, and if you wish to have an abortion, these are the methods in which you can choose them. So it's an entire sort of spectrum of your own sexual life, your sexual health that you need to know about. So I also think joining these experiences is kind of important, but we don't do that much. So when we don't do that much, we are continuously saying abortion is an exception. Sex is already an exception in life. Now abortion is an exception around sex, so it makes it harder actually to integrate this and create a positive language which is about people's bodies, people's choices, people's health, especially women in this case, and their ability to take those decisions and to ask the system to be helpful to them rather than inimical to them.